Hey everyone, this is going to be a video of how to assemble or put together your Agamograph. Now your Agamograph should have two different images. We should see one image on one side, and as we rotate our paper or our Agamograph, we should see a second image on the other side. At this point, you should already have your 9x12 paper with the two images on it. Remember, your first image should be going through panel A1 to A6. First image, and your second image should be going through B1 to B6, second image. Now, I didn't finish or complete both of my images, but that's okay. I'm still going to show you how to assemble your Agamograph for those of you that are ready to start assembling today. What I would suggest, well, actually I should say before I suggest, the materials that you're going to be needing to complete this assembly are a 9x12 piece of paper. This will be on the supplies table available to you, a glue stick, and a pair of scissors. Now, a couple tips that you want to kind of keep in mind is don't cut all the individual panels by themselves at first. What I would suggest is I'm going to start by just going through and separating my two images. So I'm going to cut right down the center in between A6 and B1. So that way I just get my two images by themselves. Okay, you want to make sure that you're going nice and slow with your cutting so that you make a nice straight line. And keep in mind, you want to make sure that you're cutting directly on the black line, not before or over the line. That way your panels line up nice and evenly. Okay, so at this point, I've separated my two images, and what I'm gonna do is I'm only gonna cut one strip or one panel at a time. You don't wanna cut all of your strips off all at once because your strips may get kind of intertwined with other ones. You may lose the position, especially if you've already erased the numbers at the bottom. You may not remember the order that you're putting them in. So you really just wanna cut one strip at a time. Another purpose or reason why we do this is because if you don't have enough time to assemble your full Agamograph today, you want to make sure that you don't lose any of your pieces. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with my first image, and I'm going to start with my strip or my panel that says A1. I'm just going to go through, again, cut nicely directly on that black line. Okay, I'm not going very fast, just nice and easy. So that way I make sure I cut in a very nice straight line. And that's going to be my first panel. So my A1 panel is going to start my Agamograph, and I'm just going to place it right here and line it up nicely on the paper. Now, eventually, when we cut all of our strips and lay them all down, it's going to take up the entire space of the paper. So you want to make sure when you're laying down your panels or your strips that you're doing it nice and even. You probably don't need a bunch of glue, but I like to just go around the perimeter. Make sure that all of the edges are pushed down, and I'm just going to very nicely line this up with the very edge of my paper. And another tip about using just a glue stick or even just the Elmer's white glue is you want to make sure that you hold it down for at least 10 seconds. Okay, that way you know that it sticks. If you kind of just put it down, it may move around if you don't hold it to stick very good. So just make sure it stays in place, that you're not going to miss any of your pieces. Okay, so we already have strip one down. Now, in order to make the Agamograph, okay, if I kind of flatten it out, you'll see that we do one panel from one picture, one panel from the second picture, right? The second panel from the first picture, the second panel from the second picture. So you're basically just alternating back and forth between each one of your pictures for each panel that you're setting up. So I've already done A1 for my first picture. So now I'm going to go to my second picture, and I'm going to start cutting out my B1 panel. Okay, now normally I would prefer that my pictures were all completely drawn first, but for this demonstration, I just wanted to make sure that you kind of got the idea as we go through. And I'll color probably the rest of that later. Okay, so now I have my A1 panel and I have my B1 panel. So I'm just gonna start by, again, adding glue to my B1 panel, making sure that I've gotten all the edges down, that it lines up nicely on my paper, and that there's no empty or blank space or open space in between my first and my second panel. So they should be lining up right next to each other. And if they don't line up exactly next to each other, what's gonna happen is all of your panels aren't gonna fit on your large paper. Okay, so I'm gonna go back again to my first picture. Remember, we're doing A1, B1, A2, B2, A3, B3, and so on and so forth until you finish your entire Agamograph. Okay, so I'm gonna go here, and the great part is if you line it up properly, your images are gonna line up properly. So even though my paper is flat right now and it doesn't really look like my heart is lining up here and here, here and here, once we go through and do that accordion fold, it's all gonna make sense together. Okay, so you'll just kind of continue the same steps. Remember, A1, B1, A2, B2, A3, B3, and continuing on until you finish your Agamograph. And once you do, it should look something like this, where all of the panels are alternating. And then what you're gonna do is you're just gonna start doing your accordion fold. So I've started on the back here, folded one panel over, okay, flip my paper over, fold it away from me, flip it back over, fold away from me, okay? And you're gonna keep flipping and folding away from yourself and going back and forth until you get a nice accordion fold. We call that an accordion fold, just like the instrument. And then you will have your assembled Agamograph. Now, once you finish your Agamograph, this is gonna go right back into your table folder so that it can be saved for when it needs to be collected for grading.